Let's go a little bit with the timeline.
Terrorism?
Terrorism. I'm really interested in that. Were you in the anti-terrorist brigade?
Yes, I was involved in what is called jihadism, okay?
I understand that in Spain we have anti-terrorist brigades that are very competent on a global level. Is this true?
As far as I know, what is good is their propaganda, okay? But, well, this happens all over Europe. In Spain, they carry out what I would call tambourine terrorism operations, meaning, and then they also do them depending on political interests. I'll explain this later. I'll give you a paradigmatic example. It's a guy who trained with me, whose name is Markin. He was recently arrested for being part of an armed group, terrorist collaboration, and so on. This guy's not a terrorist. He just took a stupid photo with an Islamic State of Iraq and Syria flag in Saudi Arabia or something like that. That's not terrorism. What happens is that in the National Police, the Civil Guard, and the rest of the security forces, it's all about statistics. In other words, they have to check a box. It's like the whole gender farce, which we'll talk about later. I call it gender violence. I say gender farce. Because it can't be that guys are being arrested without any evidence at all. And this has been happening since 2004, when that damn law came out. Because there are many men who have committed suicide, there are many men who are out on the street, there are many men who don't see their children because their wife has falsely accused them. And I have seen that myself as the head of a complaints office. And anyone who says otherwise is lying. So yes, I say what's happening, it's just that.
And so that's also how it works with terrorism, of course.
So they count, they've done, Minister, how many operations have they done? We've done 35 operations, but what kind of operations? Useless operations? You see it, besides, it's all a show, they go with the dogs and all that. Do you realize how many explosives they've seized? 0. How many weapons do they seize? 0. How much money do they seize? 3,000 euros. That money? What I mean is, terrorists need to have several things to be terrorists, something to threaten with or to carry out an armed action.
Or intention to, or plan to, or
indications
that it is heading towards.
But they talk nonsense, they walk. The penal code to increase the statistics, self-indoctrination. A guy who watches attack videos on YouTube is not a terrorist, at least for me. For someone to be considered a terrorist, they need to have weapons, explosives, or a certain amount of money to finance terrorism. In Spain, they arrest people without explosives, weapons, or much money, so what kind of terrorists are they? Are they tambourine terrorists? And with this, I'm not saying that Spain doesn't have an extreme threat, because we do have an extreme threat, especially in Catalonia, Ceuta, Melilla, and certain autonomous communities that are overwhelmed. I'm telling you that I experienced jihadist terrorism from 2004 to 2007, and even back then, there was already a problem, a huge problem, a really huge problem. My friends in Catalonia tell me you have to walk down the street. In Spain, immigration is a serious problem, but people ignore it. Now, Feiju claims he wants this, but that's not true. He claims he wants to control the border and expel foreign criminals. But that's false. The organic law on foreigners from 2000 already covers that.
I have no doubt Vox would do it. They're even more radical about it.
Exactly. None of them are going to do it. It's a lie. So I always say something in the book as well, that this is for all Spaniards, regardless of their ideology, status, region, orientation of any kind. They're killing us, they're hanging us with the sweat we're giving, so either this changes or we're in very, very bad shape. We have a huge security problem. I'm telling you, recently in North America, a 17-year-old unaccompanied minor raped a 14-year-old girl. Unaccompanied minors are what they are. They tried to whitewash it on television, the media whores, obviously. And if they're so good, it's because there's a police car stationed there permanently. And then Jota, if you're 17 years old and you get an erection while raping a 14-year-old girl, does that make you a son of a bitch? That's all there is to it, and they're never going to kick him out of Spain, ever, just like so many others. I invite people to go to the administrative courts, which is where the immigration cases are decided. And I've seen people with multiple homicides, multiple rapes, stay in Spain because of their roots. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
What do you mean because of their roots?
Because of their roots. They claim they have roots because they've been in Spain, and so they stay in Spain. Having killed, having raped. I also get pretty worked up about the whole gender violence thing, and with the orcs of the pussy. Well, because then there's a lot of money, billions for garbage, but nobody remembers that girl from the other day.
They don't even mention her because she's a second-class victim. She's a second-class victim because being attacked by an immigrant doesn't fit. It doesn't fit into their narrative that the oppressor is the white European Christian heteropatriarchy.
That's right, that's right. And that girl is devastated, and her family is devastated. And the politicians, the 350 leaders we have in Spain, just taking advantage of the situation.
I understand perfectly.
So, well, when I see you dealing with terrorism, there's another problem. We depend on the Anglo-American services and so on. I have friends who are like family in the United States, and I respect the American people. Their intelligence services aren't allies, since anyone with sense knows you have your own service, and then there are others. There are no friends when it comes to intelligence. There are no friends. Everyone is an enemy. So here we have the Moroccan services that have Spain trolled and the American services that are trolling Spain. And Spain, well, is dying, so we need the blood of Vladelezo or Don Pelayo, but it's urgent, and every day there are fewer Spaniards. Understand me in the way I mean it, you know?
I perfectly understand what you mean, because it's a struggle that's hard for me, and in fact the struggle is becoming so complicated that I only see one alternative, and the alternative is to give up. For Spain to be destroyed, the Spanish state has to fall, and the Spanish state has to fall.
I don't think there's no peaceful solution, and sorry to interrupt you.
I don't believe it either, and the only peaceful solution would require even more hunger, misery, chaos, and insecurity. And for a reaction to be generated by the people who stay here, I'm not going to stay here anymore.
But what you say about hunger, I kind of agree with you on that, in quotation marks. Because people go through hardship, which is something they will never do. For us to go hungry. The son of a bitch, the genocidal Stalin, said something very telling. He took a chicken. Do you know about this story? He took a chicken, and with his cabinet he said, "Look at this chicken." And he left it without food. Then he grabbed it, brought it closer, and plucked it alive. He took some grain and said, "Look at the chicken," and it went to eat. That's what Spanish politicians do. They make us go through hardship, but we can't go too hungry, because if we get too hungry, we rebel.
And we gouge their eyes out.
So people are struggling to make ends meet. But 4,400 euros per illegal immigrant in Spain, over 3,000 euros per unaccompanied minor in Spain per month. I'm telling you, but what is this? When we have elderly people who can't take care of themselves, when we have people with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis with cancer, it doesn't matter to me whatever the illness is, when we don't have a public dentist, when we don't have psychologists for people who aren't well, with a suicide rate of 4,000 suicides per year. But of course, there's money for the BGT to collect as much as possible. Or so their honors can go to prostitutes, because I've seen that too. I've seen young ladies going up to the offices of the commanders of a certain general police station on Thursdays at 9 at night with mini skirts, high heels, and flashy shoes. What were they trying to do? File a report? I'll tell you more.
To make a statement in front of the microphone?
In fact, I'll tell you more. I'll tell you more about jihadism, my section chief. One night we went out for dinner and he had sex with a girl in the camouflage in front of everyone. What respect that, you know, everyone has their own life, but you have to behave a little. Being a national police officer is the same. It's the same respectability as any other profession, but you're taking away people's freedom. You carry a firearm. There has to be more to it.
You're not a regular citizen. Being a police officer, you have to be an example of integrity, right? You can't do what, if you saw another citizen doing it while on duty, you would arrest them.
Here's what I tell people. Don't trust any police officer, not even one.
No.
That they should only trust themselves.
To tell you the truth, we don't do it. And I'm very good friends with Sergio Luque. I care about him a lot, but it's him, the security force, the state security forces, people on my side. Let's just say they have such a distrust of the state. We see the police as the attack dogs of the authorities.
The armed wing of political power, exactly. That's how it was seen during the unconstitutional state of emergency, and I say unconstitutional. All police officers, civil guards, and local police have studied Organic Law 481, which regulates states of emergency, exception, and siege. And everyone knew that what the government was doing was illegal.
The Constitutional Court has already ruled it illegal.
Of course. I mean...
You're not hearing this from David Azanian, son of Red Pill or anything?
Of course. So, how do you have the nerve to go check people's shopping, to go find them, when none of those fines have actually gone through? But those who paid early don't get their money back. Let me explain. That's the typical way the Spanish administration works. So, what I'm getting at is, there are many police officers who, knowing it's illegal, have asked me, at what point do I rikiriki? I injected myself with a certain substance, because there are female colleagues who have endless periods, headaches, male colleagues who have heart conditions, and so on and so forth. So, well, what I'm getting at is, the police have to have a certain inscriptive power and exercise it. But here, what I say in the book is that 60% just follow orders now. The People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs and the Gestapo also followed orders, and so did the SS. You're not here to just follow orders, you're here to uphold the law. And many times by upholding the law, you end up confronting your superiors. That's what you have to do. My job was to challenge my superiors when they ordered illegal acts and to protect my subordinates.
And legal matters, what did they ask you to do?
Well, let me see. Legal things? It's just that I've been here for a while. I can give you an example, which is pretty low, that was done in the National Police with foreigners back in 2004 to 2007. There was an idea in the police, which I call the Recommended Police Unit. Just look at the initials and you'll see. And they would give them the night off if they turned in two foreigners in an irregular situation, which I think is fine. If someone is a foreigner in an irregular situation, they should be detained and an expulsion file should be made, that's fine. But it's one thing to go after irregular foreigners who commit crimes, which I understand. There should be a priority for those who commit crimes. But if they're just working irregularly in Spain to make a living, you know what I mean?
Obviously, it's not the same.
It's not the same. As a former complaints office head, I've seen a woman 9 months pregnant come to me for being in the country illegally. I mean, I'm an idiot, so, well, those kinds of things, you know? Illegal stuff, man, there are so many, Joda, I wouldn't even know where to start.
But well, if there are so many, can you give me an example? Can you, let's see?
I mean, yeah, but I also don't want to get myself in trouble. I really don't want to get involved.
As long as you don't mention anyone, I don't think it's too big of a problem, David. And if it is too big of a problem, honestly, it's worth it.
Look, I can tell you, Trojanizing administrations.
They have asked you to Trojanize?
Trojanizing administrations, getting into places without a court order, thank you.
Trojanizing administrations, do you mean infiltrating with hacking? Okay.
I had a buddy who was the best hacker in the police. Fortunately, he's no longer in the police and he's making a very good living now. Okay, so can I tell you about those? Can I tell you about legalities? The ones who take the car home, Jota, I've mentioned it a bunch of times, that they take the car home. I mean the undercover car, not the marked one. Do you know how much money that is? Cars, gas, and insurance, all paid by taxpayers. They say it's in case someone calls or their son has an emergency, but what emergency? I was involved in jihadism. What did I tell you? Our boss takes the car to eat, and I say we need to go to the national court to deliver wiretapping warrants for some phones, but he leaves anyway. Then I ask, how? That later we're working? It's a car for work, not for you to take it to go eat. No, well then no. Of course. I was already having trouble with my boss, and one day I saw the chief commissioner and I said, "Boss, what's going on here?" And the guy looked at me like saying, "You're right," but he didn't do anything either.
So you had a fight with your boss because he started asking you for things that weren't ethical, right?
I'm telling you, unethical things in several jobs, not just in one.
You know, or is it something institutional? I mean, is that how it works? Yes.
Yes, that's right. It's institutional. For example, statistics. The police often do things like identifying 500,000 people, but what good does that do for me? Identifying a 60-year-old man who's just walking his dog? Is that something that's relevant to the fate of the citizens, right? I have to focus on the ones I need to focus on, the ones I know are committing crimes all day, the ones I already know, the ones I've already arrested. I have to put pressure on those people.
That's exactly the feeling, that the police are here to mess with the ordinary citizen. That's how the Spanish people feel. And here, punks, people from the left, the right, everyone is going to come together in this statement I'm about to make. The feeling is that the police in Spain are here to hassle the guy who's truly not dangerous instead of the people who are actually dangerous. It seems like they let them go free, they don't go after them, nothing happens. In the most troubled neighborhoods, you don't see them as much. But when there are some kids smoking a joint in a park, boom, they're screwed, fine, just like that. It has more consequences. Like that Mena who did that to the 14-year-old girl from Fortaleza. That's what's really a tragedy, and that's the general feeling of the average citizen. Topics that are close to reality or not entirely?
Honestly, I'll tell you more. In the time I've been in Ciudad de Haciana, I've only written up 2 reports for marijuana use. Do you want to know why? I always told them, if there are elderly people or kids nearby, smoke your joints elsewhere. Simple as that. The 2 reports happened because they got cocky. I said, that's all I needed.
That's not very smart either.
Right? So that's what I'm getting at. I've seen guys smoking a joint in a park, just they're not hurting anyone. I identified them, bam, 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 and I didn't propose any more sanctions and just took their joints away. Are they going to smoke the joints anyway? Yeah, it's a bit like that, and there are more important things to do. So I always say the same thing, about homicides, rapes. Nothing's going to happen. They're not going to expel this guy from Spain, the Moor I told you about. They're not even going to put him in jail because he's a minor, of course. They'll just give him a little course, and that's it. In 2 days, he's back on the street, while the girl is destroyed for life, and her family too. But if you run a red light this afternoon, or use your phone, or drive at 150 on the highway,
a man faces the same consequences for double parking for half an hour as for doing something terrible to a 14-year-old girl.
That's Almeida, the mayor of Madrid, who said he was going to get rid of Madrid 360, or Carmena's Madrid Central, and he left it just the same. And who the hell are they to prohibit you from driving when you have a car with a valid registration, your inspection up to date, and your road taxes paid? Who the hell are they? With the lie of climate change, they're all the same. I keep saying the same thing. The one who wears the 2030 agenda pin, they're the enemies we have. They're all over the administration.
They're everywhere in the administration. I want to get to a point, David, where when do you become too uncomfortable a person for the police force?
Yes.
That they decide to retire you early because you told me, I don't know if you've already said it on camera, that they retire you. How old were you when they retired you?
I report some irregularities about an advisor to the general director, and they start asking me, what irregularities?
If you can say.
Well, some leaks of information to journalists to places where it shouldn't be. It was information about complaints, which are supposed to be confidential. And then I talked to my boss, the commissioner, and I said, is this happening? He said, I'll report this to the disciplinary board. What happened? Was she protected by a higher ranking commissioner? So then, am I going to get a disciplinary file? Keep in mind, Jota, that I've had 10 disciplinary files opened against me in my life, 4 of them for serious offenses. I don't even have a single warning.
What's a warning?
A warning is the lightest penalty, okay? I mean, I have nothing, I have a spotless record, and they've been after me. I'll tell you more. There's a woman, a subordinate, who reported me for workplace harassment. At the time, I had 20 subordinates, okay? 4 women came forward with complaints. For example, that's on record. I mean, I'm not making it up. On record. That this woman had acted recklessly against me, that I was a hierarchical superior, that I treated them perfectly, that I was professional, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what happened? The bosses threatened those 4 and opened a disciplinary file against them for coming to my defense.
So they launched a witch hunt against you in the department?
Absolutely, of course.
Why?
Because what I say, well, people don't like what I always say. I stand up for the 20% of national police officers who are the ones really carrying the weight of the national police. I talk to a lot of police officers from all ranks. They're all fed up, they want to leave the police, or they just don't care anymore, or they're burned out because they say, where are we going to end up? But I always tell them the same thing. Everyone has to fulfill their own share of responsibility. I can't defend all of Spain, but I can do my part. If tomorrow, as a civilian, I witness abuse, am I obligated to intervene? That's how it was before, with the social pressure in neighborhoods. I remember in the years, in the 90s, late 80s, I was a teenager. And in Spain you had a punk friend, a skinhead friend, a junkie friend, a trapeze artist friend, a friend of any kind. You had freedom of speech, could discuss various topics, and didn't want to harm anyone. Now we have this catch-all hate crime law, which is nothing more than an attack on freedom of speech. And now it's very trendy police-wise that at the slightest thing, how are you? I wouldn't rule out that they might come to arrest me tomorrow for a hate crime, for anything I've said, you know? So, is that the country we live in? That's a dictatorship, completely.
And the police officers, since you talked to several of them inside the force, they feel the same way completely. And can the police do anything to reverse the situation? I mean, is there any kind of mechanism that they have?
To report their superiors? To report their mistake? Let me give you an example.
How would they end up? Just like you, of course.
But the point is, let me give you an example. When I used to play rugby, I played in the National First Division. The coach always told us, if you get into a fight with someone else, you'll both get thrown out if everyone joins in. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, right? So, I tell them to record their bosses. I tell them that when security comes, they need to step up, to be like, if you know what I mean. I've also acted with a certain recklessness because I didn't care if it was 8 or 800, and I even stood up to a chief commissioner. During a meal, my colleague kept kicking me under the table, which I mentioned in the book. I confronted him about it.
Did you hit them?
No, I confronted them dialectically speaking.
Okay.
He offered me over €1,000 a month from secret funds, and I told him to shove them.
I was kicking you under the table?
Like my buddy, telling me to cut it out, you know.
Because I was...
He insulted me and offered me money.
For what?
For some work we were doing, and I said, I don't want money for my work, but help me with other things. Well, I tell all of this in the book, in great detail. You know what I mean? Obviously, for people who speak badly, I use an alias, and for people who speak well, I use their real name. Well, that's where we are.